approving a vaccine. The Food and Drug Administration nears a decision on authorizing Pfizer's vaccine. Still waiting for aid. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill continue negotiating proposals to help Americans struggling in the pandemic. Our Lady of Guadalupe. As the Basilica closes due to the coronavirus crisis, we'll tell you what Pope Francis is extending to the faithful. And a life-size nativity scene. We get a look at a virtual show of St. Francis's nativity in his patron city of Assisi. On EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, December 10th, 2020. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. Tonight, a medical miracle. Vice President Mike Pence announces a vaccine is imminent as the world hopes for an end to the coronavirus pandemic. This as health experts warn that Christmas 2020 cannot be like Christmas 2019, and another diplomatic breakthrough for President Donald Trump involving Israel. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen?
Tonight, the FDA is very close to signing off on that promising vaccine, and Vice President Mike Pence is optimistic.
It is nothing short of a medical miracle.
Just over 2 weeks until Christmas, Vice President Mike Pence brings this message to a pandemic-exhausted nation.
It's remarkable to think as we approach what we believe will be the beginning of what will ultimately end the coronavirus pandemic in America, with an imminent vaccine likely to be approved within days.
In a visit to the University of South Carolina Medical School, the vice president pledged vaccines will be distributed fast after approval.
We'll actually be administering those vaccines within 24 hours of that.
Today, the FDA is answering this critical question.
The question is based on the totality of scientific evidence available. Do the benefits of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine outweigh its risks for use in individuals 16 years of age and older?
Before shots go in arms, one health expert worries, how bad will it get?
I don't care if I'm accused of being the Grinch that stole Christmas, but you know what? I want you to be around for next Christmas and the Christmas after that.
And the director at the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy at the University of Minnesota warns this Christmas can't be like any other.
So if your son and daughter are coming home from college, they're not part of your pod. Either they quarantine for 10 to 14 days or they're not part of what happens at the holidays.
Meanwhile, as President Donald Trump contests the election in court, oversees a diplomatic victory. Writing on Twitter, another historic breakthrough today. Our two great friends, Israel and the Kingdom of Morocco, have agreed to full diplomatic relations, a massive breakthrough for peace in the Middle East.
I want to first thank President Trump for his extraordinary efforts to expand peace, to bring peace to Israel and the peoples of the Middle East.
Under President Trump, Morocco is the fourth Arab nation to recognize Israel in just the last 4 months alone. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
A bipartisan group of lawmakers is trying to inch closer to an agreement on a federal coronavirus relief package. But right now, it does not include cash payments like the one sent to more than 160 million Americans earlier this year. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales reports. Eric?
Well, the proposed deal focuses on unemployment benefits and aid to businesses directly, but falls short for providing stimulus checks to individuals. Business owners that I spoke with say that they're just hoping Congress comes up with a deal before they have to close their doors for good. Catholic business owner Jimmy Cerrito says he used funds from the first round of the Paycheck Protection Program to keep his tavern doors open.
As time goes by, the money that they gave, it just starts disappearing, and then you get back into credit card debt and get behind on things.
But that money has run out. Meanwhile, the stalemate on Capitol Hill continues.
While Democrats hold the Paycheck Protection Program hostage over controversial state government bailouts, family businesses are closing their doors.
A bipartisan group of lawmakers has proposed a deal that includes giving the unemployed $300 more a week for 16 weeks, $300 billion in aid for small businesses, and a continued pause on federal student loan payments through the end of April. But the plan doesn't include stimulus checks.
We need a large, bold program to stimulate the economy, help people out of the conditions they're in, but keep the economy going for a long period of time.
If no deal is reached, Republican Senator Josh Hawley plans to introduce a separate bill to provide direct payments to Americans. $1,200 for individuals and $2,400 for couples and $500 for every child, similar to what was passed back in March. Congress is trying to get something passed soon because aid programs that were approved in March, including jobless assistance measures and eviction protections, expire before the end of the year. Cerrito and other business owners continue to pray.
We've really seen a loss of business the last 3-4 weeks as the COVID cases have gone up. So yes, we could definitely, we need it.
The House did pass a short-term funding bill yesterday. That'll prevent a government shutdown until December 18th and give more time to come up with some sort of COVID relief. By the way, that stopgap bill will now head to the Senate, where it is expected to pass. Reporting from the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Well, another story that we are tracking on Capitol Hill is the fallout following reports of a suspected Chinese spy's attempts to target local and national politicians between 2011 and 2015. As first published by Axios, one of the presumed female spies' alleged targets during that time was California Congressman Eric Swalwell, who currently sits on the House Intelligence Committee. We should note that Swalwell has not been accused of any wrongdoing. Joining me now to talk more about this is Gordon Chang, author of The Coming Collapse of China. Gordon, welcome back. Always good to be with you. What more do we know about this suspected female spy named Christine Fang, or Fang, and how she operated?
Well, she tried to operate through politicians at both high and low levels in California. The thing that is striking about this, Tracy, is that Fang, she first approached Swalwell not when he was sitting on the House Intelligence Committee, which of course would be of great interest to China and where Swalwell is now. She first approached him when he was a council member in Dublin City, California, which means that China is targeting young politicians throughout the United States and hoping that they become successful, they become more influential. And that shows you the magnitude of China's influence campaign against the United States. And by the way, this is not just against 435 members of Congress or 100 senators or the President of the United States. They're going after all institutions, media, educational, NGOs, foundations, you name it.
Well, Gordon, this sort of targeting of, the elected officials and cultivating these relationships really drives home the premeditated nature of this kind of threat from the Chinese government. You touched on it. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, for decades, China has realized that it needs the United States. It needs money, it needs technology, it needs know-how. And they also understand that they've got to buy off the political class. And we saw a little bit about this in that video dating from November 28th, which was essentially a Chinese professor in Beijing from Renmin University bragging in front of an audience in Shanghai, which was broadcast throughout China. This is Di Dongsheng. And it shows you how much China has worked to penetrate the American political system, because Professor Di said, and he's not far from the mark, that China was able to determine outcomes at the highest levels of the American political system. So this is a warning to us about China's penetration of the United States. And indeed, we see this across the world as well.
I want to go back to Swalwell specifically now. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, she gave her vote of confidence today and said that she doesn't have any concerns about Swalwell. And as we did mention earlier, he has not been accused of any wrongdoing. That said, Republicans are saying this calls into question whether he should actually remain on the Intelligence Committee. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I agree with the Republicans on this one. There is no sin in being targeted by China's Ministry of State Security. That's true for virtually everybody in a position of influence in Washington. The sin here is that Swalwell, even after being told by the FBI of Christine Fang, continued to talk in public only about Russia. It was Russia, 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 Trump, Trump, Trump. And he downplayed the threat from China, even though he knew, sitting on the Intelligence Committee, that China by far was the greater threat to the United States than Russia was. That shows a lack of judgment. It also shows that he should not be sitting on the Intel Committee, because I just think that it's not that he was targeted, but his reaction to it.
Well, Gordon, thank you so much for your analysis. We always appreciate it. Gordon Chang, author of The Coming Collapse of China. Thank you again.
Thank you, Tracy.
Retaliation sanctions by China as Beijing slaps new restrictions on White House officials.
严重干涉中国内政，损害中方核心利益。
A spokeswoman for China's foreign ministry says the communist country will no longer let American diplomats travel to Hong Kong and Macau without a visa. It is in retaliation after the U.S. restricted travel for Chinese diplomats. Leaders of all 27 European Union countries are meeting to approve a budget, and it appears Poland and Hungary will go along with the 7-year plan after rejecting it last month. It includes over $2 trillion for the EU budget and coronavirus aid. A judge in Beirut is charging Lebanon's foreign prime minister with negligence for last summer's massive port explosion. Hassan Diab was Lebanon's caretaker prime minister when the port in Beirut was destroyed. He and 3 others are charged with negligence for the blast that killed over 200 people in August. It was caused by explosive chemicals that were stored at the port for 6 years, and top officials did nothing about it. Pope Francis urges Catholic aid agencies to help suffering Syrians and Iraqis.
Delle amate Siria, Iraq e paesi limitrofi.
In a video message to participants of a meeting on the humanitarian crisis in the Middle East, the Holy Father calls on church leaders to promote peace and ensure the Christian presence survives. He also urged international communities to help refugees return home. Pope Francis grants a possible plenary indulgence to all Catholics on the Feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. December 12th marks the 125th anniversary of her coronation. Faithful can receive an indulgence by preparing an altar for Our Lady of Guadalupe at home and actively participate in the live stream Mass at the Basilica in Mexico, as well as being in a state of grace after confession, going to Mass, and receiving communion. Coming up, the incoming Bishop of Buffalo, New York, talks about his new role in a challenging time for the diocese. Tonight we speak with the newly appointed head of the Diocese of Buffalo, New York, Bishop Michael Fisher, as he prepares to assume leadership of a diocese confronting a number of significant challenges. Bishop Michael Fisher joins me now on Skype. Your Excellency, thank you so much for coming on the show today and for your time. We appreciate it. I know that you've said that at your core, you're a parish priest and a pastor. How do you think that will help you in this new role?
Well, that's what our church is all about. It's families, family of families. It's celebrating, I think, the people of our parishes and bringing them together. At my core, I became a priest because I came out of a family, loving family, a wonderful family, and that's what I've experienced as a parish priest in working with the people that I've called to serve, and it's just there's nothing like it. So I hope I bring that zeal for the love of families and the love of parish life. Parish life encompasses everything from the joys of love and marriage, weddings, the sadness at loss in terms of funerals, the baptism of newborn babies, new life, the care of those in need, how we reach those who are vulnerable so it's about life, and that is what I hope I bring at my core as a priest, a bishop, and now the shepherd of the Diocese of Buffalo.
And I do know that your appointment comes amid what is still a very challenging time for the Diocese of Buffalo. A new lawsuit filed last month by New York's Attorney General for failure to follow mandated policies to protect children from clergy sex abuse, and a bankruptcy filing. How do you plan to restore confidence and get to a better place there?
Well, isn't that the key now? Trust and transparency. I think we certainly have many challenges ahead of us, but we need to do it together and collaboratively. I'm very strong when it comes to communication, as well as collaboration with the laity, the priests, and certainly what I want to do is to get to know all of the people there, the gifts that they have. I understand the Diocese of Buffalo is a very vibrant community. They have deep challenges, whether they be financially or with the Chapter 11 bankruptcy, as well as the many abuse cases. Another important aspect of that would be reaching out to those who have been hurt, that they know that they also have an ear that to be listened to. So I want to bring that to my ministry there with the good people of Buffalo. We will take on those challenges, but I can't do it alone, and I need to do it together. I need to get to know the people.
You mentioned transparency. What would that look like to you? And also, do you have a message to the survivors of clergy abuse?
Absolutely. First of all, I want them to know that I'm praying for them. I have seen the hurt that many victims have experienced. Part of my ministry down here was involvement in retreats for clergy abuse survivors. And so I know what they're looking for is someone to listen to them. And if they will allow me, I want to be part of that healing and let them know that that they are a part of our family, and that I want to help them in any way to heal. So that would be essential. Also, that our people know that their children are protected, that they have safe environments in the churches and in our schools, that we are following our policies. There are good policies in place in all of our dioceses, and those policies need to be continually looked at and make sure that we're following them. There's no tolerance for abuse of a child or vulnerable adults. We need to certainly work towards that, and to cooperate when we need to with the civil authorities.
I'm curious, as Bishop of the Diocese of Buffalo, what will be some of your goals?
Well, one of my goals is certainly to get to know, again, the laity, the various leadership of the diocese, whether it be the councils, the priest council, getting to know all of the priests, the religious, the deacons. I have a lot. They have one face and one name to remember. I'm going to have a lot more. So I want to know what are the gifts that they bring. So that would be certainly a priority. Another one is to continue the work of healing with victims and survivors of abuse. And then lastly, to continue the good work that is beginning on the road to renewal. I know a lot of work has been done and needs to still be done in the initiative that has begun in renewing our parishes and the diocese. I know the COVID pandemic has sort of put a tamper on that, but we have technology that we can use to continue to move forward.
Well, Your Excellency, thank you so much for your time today. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you, and God bless you.
Up next, a video and light show on the Basilica of St. Francis in Assisi, Italy, as we approach Christmas. While we set up our nativity scenes and wait for the Lord's coming, EWTN News Rome correspondent Colm Flynn takes us on a journey through Italy to see how they are preparing for Christmas.
Nativity scenes are popping up all across Italy, like this one here behind me. And thanks to St. Francis of Assisi, the nativity scene has become a staple decoration in every Christian home, and each one is different. Well, this year, the Franciscans decided to put a modern twist on the traditional creche. Let's travel to Assisi to take a look. St. Francis of Assisi was the first to create the nativity scene in the 13th century. He wanted to design something that would bring him back spiritually to the town of Bethlehem. In Franciscan spirit, Assisi decided to bring the joy of Christmas by transforming the city into their own Bethlehem. Each night, the facade of the Basilica of St. Francis and the Cathedral of St. Rufino is lit up by a video projection of the Nativity of Jesus and the Annunciation of Mary. Every 13 minutes, the nativity scene disappears and a light show brings to life the frescoes of Italian painter Giotto, found painted on the walls and ceilings of the basilica. Since this year is marked by great suffering from the pandemic, the Franciscans wanted to bring beauty and joy to the people of Assisi. Father Marco Moroni, custodian of the Sacred Heart of Assisi, explains they wanted to give people the opportunity to feel a part of the birth of the Lord. He says when we immerse ourselves in the Nativity, God immerses himself in our humanity. There is also a life-size nativity scene composed of 50 statues, including a nurse, to honor healthcare workers during the pandemic. Those who can't visit Assisi can view the spectacle on their website, nataledifrancesco.it.
Ad accendere questa luce dentro.
Press director Father Enzo Fortunato says the beauty of these light projections should remind us to preserve our own light born in each one of us, so when we face surprises in our life, we'll have the light to guide us. The Christmas of St. Francis's Beautiful Light Show will be available to view until January the 6th on Epiphany. In Rome, Colm Flynn, EWTN News Nightly.
And before we go, we like to see your nativity scenes, whether it's in your front yard, inside of your home, or even at your parish. We would love to see it. So send us a picture of the nativity scene, and you can send them to us on our EWTN News Nightly Twitter or Facebook pages, or by emailing EWTNnewsnightly@EWTN.com. And be sure to include your name and where you're from, and you could see them featured right here on EWTN News Nightly. We thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.